Okay, Win Magazine editor Tristan Warner here, joined by special guest Coach Timmy Box. Um, Before we get into this interview, just a quick description for those maybe watching for the first time or kind of unsure of what these are. But for a little over a year now, Win Magazine has been publishing a four-page section in every magazine called the USA Wrestling Coaches Corner. And what these articles are is really a coaching resource and a tool for our readers and for coaches out there to learn from. Basically, we've interviewed coaches from all age levels all across the country, varying levels from youth to club to high school to college to, international. And now today, for the first time, even Team USA's head beach coach. So, this article will be in the June 25th issue of Win Magazine, and we'll have a QR code linked with the full YouTube video. So just wanted to get that out of the way so people understand kind of some of the reason behind this interview, and we're going to touch on a lot of topics with Coach Box here about his experience both as a wrestler, as a coach in many different realms. He wears many different hats, and we're going to talk to him about that. So, Coach Tim, I know you just got back from overseas. Thanks a lot for hopping on with us to do this interview.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So I always like to ask coaches when we first get started with these is, you know, regardless of the success level you had as an athlete, not every wrestler always dreams of becoming a coach. Obviously, there's many other career paths to follow. Was coaching something that you always wanted to get involved with, or was it kind of like when your career ended, you're like, what's next? And then, you stumbled upon it. I'm always curious to hear how, former wrestlers get involved in coaching.
Yeah, a little bit of both, I think. For me, my dad and my brother were both coaches. So it was kind of a family of coaches. And, I didn't really ever think that I would coach to this level. I think I always thought I would be involved. But, I've been coaching for a long time. I started coaching when I was really young. We used to do the Junior Drillers Youth Club over in Bakersfield. My dad was the head coach, and even when I was in high school, I would help him out with that. Did that through high school, and then a little bit into college. I think probably 2 to 3 years into college, I did youth coaching. Then I transferred over to Northern Colorado, to finish up my college career. Coached over there a little bit, and just kind of fell in love with that aspect of the sport, and competing's hard as it is, right? I mean, it's so draining, it's so difficult. So I reached a point where I started just helping others, and I kind of didn't realize how much I loved coaching. So it was that combined with the fact that I didn't really know like where to go after I was done competing. Everybody faces kind of that weird moment when
Absolutely.
yeah. I mean, we all go through it, right? We're done with college, we don't really know what to do. We have to re-identify, and it really just gave me so much joy to help other people, and it still does.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, I probably should have backtracked even further and talked a little bit about your background, but, you kind of already touched on it. You said your dad was a coach. I wanted to ask, how did you get involved in the sport in general? Was your dad a wrestler, or did he just take up coaching and then you were obviously his son, got into it?
Yeah, yeah. My dad started wrestling when he was in junior high. He was back, from New York, and he put
Okay.
us into wrestling pretty early. I think my brother was, maybe 9 or so. I was 4. So I literally don't remember a time where I wasn't wrestling.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was really lucky to have him be my coach, and put me in good programs, just expose me to the right things, higher level of wrestling, fairly early on. And so that really just kind of sparked my love for the sport. And he coached us in a way where it was never too much, but we always loved it. We had perspective on things, and just kind of let others coach us at a certain point.
And
Yeah.
like you mentioned, you wrestled at Bakers. So you're from Bakersfield. You wrestled at
Mhm.
Cal State Bakersfield, and then transferred to Northern Colorado. You were an NCAA qualifier for Northern Colorado. Troy Nickerson, the coach at that time, and you were there.
He was, yeah, and he's actually
Okay.
a big reason why I went over there. So I mentioned my dad was from New York, so I already,
Yep.
he was from upstate New York. Nickerson was from a town that was close by. I always knew who Troy was. I watched him, when he was at Cornell and everything, and I was a big fan of his. And we actually dueled them, and I saw that he was coaching there, and I was looking to transfer somewhere, and it just kind of made sense. He's a fantastic coach, and
Yeah.
I'm really glad that I went over there with Troy. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, kind of leading into that next question was going to ask you, aside from your dad, who were some of the other coaching, leaders and mentors that you had throughout your career that, not only helped your career, but, maybe you still hear those voices in your head when you're coaching now, or you feel like you
Yeah.
took a lot away from them and that you know have been a big influence on you as a coach now?
Oh, so many, so many. I mean, in high school I had the Varner family, Andy
Yeah.
Varner, Steve Varner. They were always great. So many other great high school coaches. I mean, my youth coaches, right? The Delphin brothers back in Bakersfield, they did a lot. Uh, Danny Cruz was one of my first youth coaches. He was great. I can still just hear, be a hammer as you're suffering in practice, running around the circle. He just had these little sayings that stood out. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, in college, had lots of good coaches, right? Jerry Abbas, Efren Ceballos. When I went to Northern Colorado, I also had Donnie Corby, had a big impact on me. He's a Central Michigan
Yeah.
guy.
Yep. Yep.
Yep, he did a lot for me, and yeah, lots of coaches. I'm nothing without them for sure.
Yeah. So you get done with your career at Northern Colorado. Like you said, you're kind of at that point. What's next? Where do you end up first? And we're going to get into all this, but
Yeah,
you coach club, and you do private lessons. You coach at Palomar Junior College in California. You're the head coach for USA Beach Wrestling. That's kind of all the things that you're doing, at least right now. But at this time, I think you graduated in maybe like 2017.
yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong in that era, but what was your first stop in the coaching realm?
Yeah, yeah. So I did graduate in 2017, and I was thinking about coaching at Northern Colorado, right? Nickerson was kind of hinting at that, sticking around being a grad assistant. But my wife was pregnant, and she wanted to come back to California, so we decided to come back here. And my dad had actually just moved down to San Diego, so I came down there with him, and just kind of walked into like the closest random wrestling rooms, right? I mean,
That's
uh,
awesome.
Sage Creek High School is not really known for wrestling. It was a high school that was right by my work, and I just kind of walked in and was like, "Hey, can I help you guys coach?" And coach little kids, coach their high school, for a season. Did the club for a couple years, and then also looked up Palomar. And I had a few teammates who had transferred from Palomar, like back when I was
Yeah.
at Bakersfield. So I vaguely knew about it. Hit up the coach, Bertie Barrios, and I'm like, hey, can I just come roll around? Like, I'm not looking to do much. And was just a volunteer assistant there for a while. And I wasn't really getting paid or anything. I just, genuinely wanted to be involved with wrestling. And I was working a pretty hard job at the time. And
Yeah.
it just gave me joy, man. And, I wasn't really looking to make this any sort of career. It was just like, it just kept drawing me back in, and the kids
Yep.
kept asking when I'm going to come back in. And, just a couple years go by, and I eventually, got more and more involved. And then COVID hit, right? And I had to take a year off. And after that, the job at Palomar opened up, and decided to take that one. And the beach wrestling thing's a whole other story. But yeah,
Yeah, let's roll right into that because I wanted to know that as well. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit more here about beach wrestling as a whole, the rules of it and that, because I know
yeah,
a lot of your average wrestling fans have probably heard of it, but it's kind of on the periphery. They don't maybe necessarily know the ins and outs of it. But like I said, we'll get into that a little bit later on. But
yeah.
tell me, I mean, besides living in San Diego, I mean, and being a California guy, how did that whole thing how did that come to fruition?
Oh, the beach wrestling thing? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I've told this story a few times before, but you know, I I was looking to compete. Like I had a little bit of competitive fire, but like I didn't really know where to put it. I hadn't wrestled in a couple years. I think this was 2018 or 19,
yep.
and I just remember like going on my phone and looking on Instagram, and they had Reese Humphrey was going to the Beach Wrestling World Series. It was like the first year that they did that because it used to just
Okay.
be like one tournament, world
Yep.
championship kind of a thing. So in 2019 they did the Beach World Series. Reese Humphrey went and did it in Rio de Janeiro, actually. And I remember, I think it was like Mike Mal or one of the
Yeah.
flow guys like went with him and documented it. I'm like, dude, this looks awesome. And I see him
Wow.
wrestling like legit guys, right? Like guys from
Yeah.
Azerbaijan and Ukraine and like all the guys who had wrestled at the freestyle worlds and whatnot. And so I decided to go like look into how to qualify. And so I went to North Carolina, I went to Beach Nationals, and then the next tournament was in Ukraine. I'm like, all right, I'm going. And
That's
so yeah, it just kind of went from like not training at all, just like training with like random junior college kids, to just being on a plane going to Ukraine and being like, all right, I guess we're doing this.
That's
And,
awesome.
that just kind of opened this Pandora's box of just all these opportunities and travels and stories. And just, it's pretty amazing how taking a chance on a sport like beach can just open up so many things for you, for someone.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's going to be part of your message here at the end of the interview when I ask you about, there's probably people that have heard of it that are like, yeah, that sounds kind of, that looks interesting, but maybe are afraid to step in. But we'll get to that in a little bit. How did you end up? So you obviously wrestled beach, you did really well. How did you end up rolling into the USA Wrestling like official head coaching role? Because that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
How did that go from, like you said, you're on a plane to Ukraine to wrestle in this thing for the first time to a couple years later, you're the head guy?
Sure, yeah. So, I was at that point I was the only person to ever make the World Series finals on the men's side. Since then, we've had a few make the finals.
Yeah.
That combined with like my coaching experience in college and youth wrestling, all different levels. They actually had this World Beach Games that was going to be a thing, and it was like an Olympic sponsored event, had the Olympic logo and everything. And I think they had one in 2019. They had the first one, but after COVID, they were going to do another one. And for the games, they put out a call for coaches. And
Yeah.
so, I put my like application into USA Wrestling, and it ended up being like a multi-stage like interview and a panel with all these people, and went through this long process, and I was the one who got accepted for that.
That's
And
amazing.
now the crazy thing is that beach games fell through and it never happened. So it was supposed to be in Bali, and something happened where like the government lied about funding and the whole thing like collapsed. And
Wow.
after, yeah, it was the weirdest thing. And after that, I just like kept talking to him like, "Hey, I'm open to just keep going to these events. Like, we need a coach. You guys selected me for a reason. Like, can we make this happen?" And here we are in my fourth season, and I've gone to pretty much every event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, you sound like you had success with it, but as we're going to get into here, it's a little different than folk, it's a little different than free, and it's a little different than Greco. It's almost all of those wrapped into one with maybe a little bit of sumo involved
Yeah.
with the pushing out. But how did you feel so confident that only after, obviously you've been a wrestler your whole life and you've been a coach your whole life in some capacity, but where did you find the confidence like after just 1 year of doing this to be like, I can lead the entire Team USA?
Yeah. You know, I think, well, first of all, I think my talent is in coaching. I think even more so than being an athlete. And it's weird to say that. Like, I don't want to sound conceited saying that, right? But
No,
I feel
not at all. I
like
know what you mean.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, it just takes a
People have to
lot.
get for coaching. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you just have to try to understand people and what makes them tick. And
Yep.
coaching is coaching, right? And I know it's a higher level, but it's still just technique. It's still just people that you have to deal with. It's people who have fears and goals and hopes and dreams and all that same stuff, right? So it's just if you understand it and if you can work with other people and do all that, I felt pretty confident in my ability to do that first and foremost,
Yeah.
and I still do. And beyond that, I just feel like I have a deep understanding of the sport of beach and the things that work, the things that don't, the techniques that work at a high level. And I'm willing to go in and like look at a match and just completely dissect it, right? Like what's working here? Why is the Georgian team winning every weight class? What are they doing? What's their style? Right? Like things like that, and we do that pretty regularly. We really dig into the technical aspects because beach is more of a game than it is a grind. It's a quick match and you got to
Yeah.
almost go in there with a perfect game plan.
Yeah. Let's break that down a little bit further
Yeah.
here. So, from my somewhat limited knowledge, it's a 3-minute match or first person to 3 points. Is that right?
Yes.
You're in a 23-foot diameter circle that's literally on the beach. It's got like it almost looks like a weighted jump rope that's like the perimeter.
Yeah.
And really the only ways to score from what I've seen are a push out or a feet to belly takedown or a feet to back takedown. Maybe just take us through the scoring, how that works,
Yeah.
and then just break it down for anybody who there's plenty of wrestling fans out there that are very well familiar with folk style and maybe even freestyle, which the rules are constantly changing. But maybe just break it down for us a little bit real quick. What does a beach wrestling match look like?
Yeah, yeah, it's really simple, like painfully simple. And
Yeah,
first of all, the ring, it's actually full of water. They pump water into that thing, which is kind of I
that's
never
cool.
knew that.
Yeah,
But yeah, so you got that right. It's a 3-minute match, first to 3 points. Now, The only things that can touch the sand are hands and feet, period.
Okay.
So
Yep.
if I'm wrestling and like anything else touches, so if you snap me down and I hit an elbow, knee, head, whatever, you get a point. So that counts as a
Wow.
takedown. So
Okay.
the whole concept of like a takedown and the other styles, it's kind of out the window in beach. It doesn't really even matter. Now you
Okay.
can still hit takedowns, right? I mean that's still a great way to score on somebody, and we see that more often than not. But you can score on yourself if you're not careful, is the other thing,
Yeah.
right? So it takes a lot of control, and you almost have to rethink a lot of the things you do, like in folk style and freestyle. Um,
Yes.
Now the weird part about it is the 3 point moves. So it's whoever hits their back to their shoulders to the sand, right? And the ref will literally go back behind your back and look to see if you have sand on your back, and if that happens, then hey, match is
Good.
probably over.
Good way to
Now
figure
the
that out.
weird thing is it doesn't matter who initiates like a throw. So
Okay.
if Greco,
If you
right?
try to lat drop them and land on your own back, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. You
No
just
slip
you just
rule.
game over yourself,
Yeah. Okay.
basically. Yeah. So
So it's a
I've seen
risk.
people hit like a chest wrap, beautiful chest wrap throw where they go across their own back, or even a lat drop where they end up on their back. And because you hit first, there's no like I initiated this move. It's just that's it.
Wow.
So it
Okay.
makes it very simple for an audience, right? So if you're
Yeah.
watching, if you don't know anything about wrestling, you can follow the action a little easier, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of takedowns, are you not seeing traditional shots then? Because, like if you hit a high crotch, obviously your knee hits. Are you seeing more like throw bys and arm drags and or what are the typical takedowns looking like besides throws?
Yeah, I would say definitely a lot of front headlocks, go behinds, a lot of snatch singles.
Okay.
A lot of it is just creating action off of like control ties, right? So
Okay.
somebody with an underhook, they're think Iranian style, right? They're pressuring in, they wait for your reaction, they score with what you give them, right? Maybe
You're
it's
a
a throw
snap
by,
move.
maybe it's a
Yeah.
like a leg attack, maybe a knee pick. So a lot of stuff like that. A lot of failed throw attempts, a lot of failed takedown attempts that you see.
Yeah.
You'll definitely see some crazy upper body stuff, but I would say it's all that just mid to upper body level wrestling is pretty much all of it.
So would you, if you had to compare it most closely to any other style, would you say it's most like Greco?
I think it's a lot like Greco. The only difference is there's still the head position aspect and like the threat of the legs, right? So there's a lot of times where it is a whole lot like Greco, but
Yeah.
if I'm wrestling a pure Greco guy in beach, I can block with my head and they're not going to warn me, right? I'm in more of a
Yeah.
traditional stance, so it really is, it's kind of smack dab in the middle between like a Greco and a freestyle, and
Yeah.
it's fun, right? And sumo, you'll see like the world heavyweight champ from sumo. He goes into a bunch of those guys are like from Ukraine, and they go into beach wrestling and they do well, kind
I'm
of
sure.
more with like a sumo style where they're using their
Yeah.
hands and they're upright, and so it's kind of cool to see like styles that are way different than
Yeah.
traditional actually having success. We've even seen like Senegalese wrestlers out there having success, dancing around, doing their thing.
Yeah.
Look that up if you haven't. That's a pretty crazy style.
Yeah, I've seen some videos of that. That is interesting. I could see
Yeah.
how this feels a lot more free than some of the other styles. How, as a coach, I'm sure that presents challenges, especially when, if you're the coach of Team USA, and obviously these athletes, I don't know that you know super well when they're going overseas and stuff like that, and you're trying to, I don't know if you have the ability to scout opponents the same way that you would in like a freestyle event or folk style, but what kind of challenges does that present as the coach trying to like quickly mock up a game plan? Like you said, there's a lot of strategy involved to, this guy or gal is real good here or there, but talk a little bit about that process.
Well, that's honestly my favorite part of the whole thing,
Yeah.
right? Is trying to figure out the puzzles of some of these higher level wrestlers, and when I say higher level, a lot of them are that good, right? I mean, I can't tell you
Yeah.
how many world senior freestyle or Greco runner ups or champs I've coached against, right? You'll see world champs out there on the sand when you go over to Europe or go over to Africa or whatever, right? And I think if they wrestle at a few of these events internationally, there's a lot to work with scouting wise, just because they record every match and put it on YouTube. So I'm
Yeah.
constantly on that dang YouTube channel, just looking at, all right, what's this guy's tie up? What's he going for? When does he get tired?
Yep.
What are some weaknesses? Like I won't say any names, but there's a higher level wrestler from another country, and we've matched up with him a few times, and I know that he can't clear an underhook, right? So we
Yeah.
just keep going back to that every time, and he hasn't figured it out quite yet, right? Another one, he dominates the tie-ups, but we stay on the top of his head and stick and move and take a blast double when we need to, and that worked, right? One of our guys beat a three-time world champ that way.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of fun, and I think the more challenging aspect isn't just game planning, but it's how to prepare the athlete in a short amount of time, and then
Yeah.
also message it in a way to where it's not like overwhelming, right? I don't want anybody like changing their style when they go out there, and that's just coaching in general, right? You got to get a feel for how an athlete receives information, because I think sometimes when you try to game plan and you force that game plan on them and they don't like or they're not ready for it, it can be like
Yeah.
it can freak somebody out, right? So
Overwhelming. Yeah.
try to subtly kind of work that in, I think is
Yeah.
important too.
Makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Um, would you say, I'm trying to picture it, obviously I haven't been to one yet, but would you say that, wrestling or coaching at a beach event, is it a little bit more fun than it's at least, I mean, it's probably pretty fierce, I can imagine, but it looks like it would be also a little bit more fun and just something different. Do you find, is the atmosphere a little bit more laid back to coach under than compared to what you've done with, college guys or even some of these like high level, high school or younger kid events?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's kind of the whole point, right?
Yeah.
It's to make
Yeah.
wrestling fun, and it's still competitive. It's still, it checks that box for me that I'm going out and coaching against some super high international athletes. However, it's always fun.
Yeah.
Like at some of these events, they'll shut down the rings, and then there'll be a beach party like 5 minutes later where there's somebody with a grill cooking kebabs or whatever, right?
That's
And
great.
you're sitting with a bunch of athletes from a bunch of different countries, laughing, telling stories. It's like some of my good friends are athletes and coaches from other countries. And I can't speak for freestyle and Greco because I haven't gone overseas and coached those styles, but I just don't really see like that same vibe at really any other event I've gone to. It's more intense, and
Yeah, absolutely.
NCAA wrestling is intense all the time, right?
Yeah.
And not,
That's
that's great. We love it for that. But
yeah.
I tell you what, if you go to do beach, you're gonna have the time of your life. You really are, and then you're just on a beach, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you can go
Can't
to
really beat it.
Croatia and you lose a match, and you're still in like the most beautiful place ever with a coliseum behind you, right? I mean, it's pretty awesome.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So, what's your message to anyone, somebody, let's say somebody like me is sitting here listening to this interview thinking like, yeah, man, I have that itch to kind of wrestle again. How does one even begin to get started? I know you mentioned there's a beach nationals in North Carolina. I don't know if there's any preliminary steps, but how does one go about getting started in this journey if they want to do kind of what you did and become, a successful beach wrestler?
Sure. Yeah. So I think it all does start in that North Carolina tournament. If
Okay.
you want to guarantee that you have a spot, keep in mind there's 3 spots per weight. There's only 4 weight classes for men
Okay.
and 4 for women, so there's
Yep.
less fewer weight classes. Uh, but if you qualify through that criteria, and I think it's like finalist at Beach Nationals, which is it's achievable, right? It's not this. You're not going to wrestle Jordan Burroughs there. We'll
Yeah.
just say that, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and there's a whole list of criteria that you have to meet. And then most of these World Series events, they're open entry. So, we're not taking like 3 deep at every weight class all the time, right? These athletes, for the most part, they're self-funded. And that, it's hard for athletes to make it to every stop. So there's a lot of opportunity, and if somebody, maybe a former athlete or somebody who's just started late, whatever, they feel like they want to wrestle at this level and they want to
Yeah.
put themselves in front of some of the genuinely best athletes in the world. It's a great opportunity without having to go through like our freestyle or Greco gauntlet with Final X and all that.
Yeah.
And your chances are you're going to get overseas and wrestle some of the same guys that our main freestyle team or Greco team are going to see. And to me, that was the most enticing thing to me. I'm like, man, I get to travel, I get to see the world, I get to like really have like life changing perspective on these trips, and
Yeah.
I get to wrestle some guys who have wrestled in like the world championships. Like I went over to Ukraine and my finals match was a guy who beat Logan Stieber, and the year that Logan won in the freestyle worlds, and guy was an
That's
Olympian. He
wild.
was the European gold medalist at like 70 kilos, and I got to wrestle that guy in the finals. And
That's insane.
like I wouldn't have that opportunity otherwise. So for me, it was pretty rewarding that way.
That's amazing. Well, we'll definitely have to have, some coverage of obviously beach wrestling, and fans definitely need to check it out. I'm definitely going to check it out myself more. I think it sounds really cool. Thank you for speaking to it a little bit there.
Yeah.
Wanted to ask you just, considering all the the hats you've worn, all of the age levels you've coached, do you find that any one over the other has been more particularly challenging? Just out of curiosity, I know I've said this to people, and I know people have kind of agreed with me, but I've found, coming back after wrestling college, kind of coaching high school club, even, Division two college,
Yeah.
and then youth. I don't know about you. I've found that youth and little kids sometimes has actually been the most challenging. I almost feel like you have to like really step back and like almost like relearn some of the fundamentals. I'm just kind of curious, and then you obviously have the beach component to throw into that conversation. Do you feel that one, or do you think they all present their own challenges, or have you found that one has been the biggest challenge for you?
Yeah, I think they all have their own challenges for sure. It's funny that you mentioned youth, and I would have to agree with you. And I think a lot of it is because you're educating the parents right alongside the kids, even more so probably the parents.
Yep.
And you have to gain their trust in a lot of ways. And
Yeah.
so for me, that was always hard, right? You're constantly talking to the parents, they're right there at the mat. But I liked youth wrestling because the kids kind of show you exactly what they're feeling a lot of the time. Like some kids go out there crying, or they complain, or this or that. And it kind of dawned on me one day, like, man, I think everybody should coach youth wrestling because nothing really changes. They just get better at hiding these feelings, right? When you get into
Yeah.
college, like a lot of the time they're feeling the same things that they did when they were youth wrestlers. They just, it's harder to spot when you're a college
Right.
coach, right? So for me, it was like I learned the emotional cues of wrestlers through coaching youth wrestling.
Yeah.
But it was definitely hard, right? I mean, I have two kids, and it's hard to just keep them engaged with anything or keep them focused nowadays. With
Yeah.
all the different distractions and whatnot. So
Yeah.
that was hard. I would say like early high school that's a little challenging too. Junior college certainly has its challenges, but yeah, youth I would say definitely is the hardest. And there's a reason I coach adults. I think I enjoy
Yeah.
that the most. Yeah.
Yeah. And so do you coach your own kids? Have they started wrestling?
No, you know what? My little one's 4, so she's not really doing anything yet. And
Okay.
my older daughter, she plays ice hockey.
Oh, wow.
She
That's
she
awesome.
loves it. Yeah, that's
I didn't
kind
know
of
there
her
was too
thing.
much ice hockey in San Diego. That's pretty
Right,
cool.
yeah. You know what? The Anaheim Ducks and the LA Kings, they support like local rinks around here, and
Right, right.
she
That
just
makes sense, I
loves
guess.
ice hockey. There's actually a hockey game going on right now, I think, the Stanley Cup Finals.
Oh yeah.
I've
Oh
got
yeah.
that recorded. So yeah.
Wrestling guy like me would be completely absent-minded on that one. That makes sense. But
Right.
okay, so how about the flip side of that coin, of that question? Is there anything that you find or have found is maybe the most rewarding? I know it's probably a hard question because I don't want to make you like say, this one's better than the other.
Yeah.
But is there anything that you've maybe gravitated to or connected to the most as a coach that you're like, if I had to just pick one, like I would just do this because it's so rewarding.
In terms of like age group, or
All yeah, all the roles you've had, youth, junior high,
yeah.
high school, junior college, and then beach also.
Sure. They're all definitely rewarding. I really have grown to love the junior college system.
Yeah,
I've had other opportunities and I've actually just turned them down, just because, I believe in what it does for people. It's just really cool to see somebody who just like wasn't ready to go to like the next level. The kids who are going to go D1 and they're locked in and they got the support and they got the accolades. That's great. I love success. I love coaching people like that too. But there's just something about junior college where these kids are like, they have the opportunity to like make themselves at this second chance and maybe go
yeah,
transfer or go into like whatever job they want to do. And just
yep,
seeing the change it gives people, and not to say that like other levels of wrestling can't do that. Like the sport as a whole does this, but it's just been really cool to make that just such a regular thing, right? People come in, they wrestle for 2 years, they get on track, and they go do some great things. I mean, I
yeah.
just have such a soft spot for that now.
And I was gonna say, for those who aren't familiar with the 3C2A, and hopefully I don't butcher this, but the California Community College Athletic Association, is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And it wrestles. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's like September, October. It's a little bit earlier than the regular college season. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. We start practicing like in August, and we
That's right.
finish the second week of December, and it's been like that for
Okay.
like
So it's like a
since
kind
the
of like a fall
80s at least.
semester sport.
It's
Okay.
a
Yeah.
fall semester, and then the women go January to like the end of April, basically.
Okay.
So we have two different seasons. Yeah.
Right, right. And with California being such a big and such a deep state, especially, as of late, becoming among the best states in the country. Would you say, probably a dumb question, but would you say like, I'm guessing at all the junior colleges, you're probably seeing kids that were easily talented enough to go D1, D2, D3 that maybe fell through the cracks a little bit because of grades or whatever it might be. But you have your hand in trying to help them fix some of that. I'm sure a lot of them really know how to wrestle, but you as a coach are also have your hand in trying to help them fix some of that off the mat stuff. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And it just takes a lot to go to like a Division 1, right? I mean, you just have to
Yeah.
have so many aspects of your life dialed in.
Yep.
And a lot of us coaches know that we've lived it, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
um, it's some kids just they're not ready to leave home, or they're not, they don't have just the grades, or they have the skills and they have the grades, but they just aren't feeling living on their own, whatever. Like there's so many scenarios. I mean, and
Yep.
then there's the other extreme where, kids taking care of like a family member who needs help, or maybe there's an illness, maybe there's the parents have no money and won't let them go anywhere. There's just, they don't know how
Yeah.
to apply for a Division 1, and they just, they see what's close and they go there first. I've seen just countless scenarios where they come to us, or another Cali JUCO. They straighten things out. They get on the right track. They don't go into a ridiculous amount of debt that happens sometimes, right? And then they
Yep.
eventually get to where they're going. So it
Yep.
is the right fit for a lot of people. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
It's great to have kids go D1 right out of high school, of course, but it does a lot of good, and it has a place.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, the last thing I want to ask you, and I usually tend to end most of these interviews with this question, and I know it's a hard one,
Yeah.
but I guess if you could, and in this case for you, especially with the junior college kids you just talked about, this is maybe a little more of a deep question, but if there's one thing or maybe a couple top things that you hope any kid who's wrestled under you at any level could take away off the mat, a mentality or an attitude or just something that they can carry with them for the rest of their life, what stands out as like, what's the main thing you're trying to drill into these guys and girls?
Yeah, just understand that it's just such a long process to improve at anything, really, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's I
Marathon,
think
not a sprint type deal.
Yeah, and then the old saying is learn one thing to learn 1,000 things, right? If you can learn to get better at wrestling, and how to navigate your emotions, and how to be disciplined and not be too hard on yourself when you take a loss, this and that, you can take that and turn it into anything. And at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do here, and
Yeah.
for the lucky ones, right? I mean, that is with wrestling, and you can wrestle at a higher level. Maybe you go win a national title, right? I mean, obviously that's a lot of our goal, is to have that wrestling specific success,
Yeah.
but the vast majority are not, right? So as coaches, we got to understand that we're creating like we're putting humans out there who need to function, and need to be leaders, and um, yeah, we're giving them the mechanisms on how to deal with hard things, at the end of the day. And I hope that people are just more set up for life success, and they have confidence in themselves, and they can be of service to others. That's the other thing. Just
Yeah.
show up and be of service to your team, or to your organization, to your coach, to your family in some way.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. I'd say just from even having this conversation with you, the lesson there also could be just you don't necessarily know where you're going and what opportunities will open up. Like you said, just you took a shot on something like beach wrestling that was like, huh, this sounds cool. I'll give it a shot, and then look where you are now. So
Yeah.
that's really a cool lesson. I think anybody watching this can take away, and I hope somebody watching this interview or seeing a clip will be like, you know what, I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring and give that a shot because I mean, like you said, it really sounds like you can't go wrong with it if you're someone who's gotten done competing with your career and even if you think you're maybe done, but it just sounds like, if the Olympics or RAF, is not in the cards for you or the world team, then this is something that you could still stay involved with the sport with. So
100%. And there's guys out there like that. I'll just mention one guy real quick, right? Like,
yeah,
so somebody who struck me, and there's many, but Jabari Irons, right? I mean, this guy's a hammer, right? I mean, he just, for whatever reason, he'll tell his story better than me. I won't dip into it too much, but life circumstances kind of kept him out of like Division 1 wrestling. But
yeah,
that dude was good, and I think he was just waiting forever to get an opportunity to show how good he was, and he went out there and beat some high level international guys, and really
yeah,
just put on a show. And
yep,
so it was kind of similar to somebody like me, right? I mean, I always knew that I could do that, and it's a chance to do that for these athletes who are maybe done with college or can't
Yep.
quite break the top three in freestyle or Greco, whatever, or even
Yeah.
the top 10,
They found something that clicks for them, and that's
Sure.
what's important. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, Coach Tim, I really appreciate you joining us on this call. Like I said, we'll have the article out in the June 25th issue of Win Magazine, the Final X issue, and then this video will also be QR code linked on YouTube. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing big things happening for Team USA on the beach side, and hopefully, those numbers keep growing, and we'll see more talented athletes out there joining you in the sand.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Take care.
Yeah, you too.